go. We're on Daf Yudchet Amud Aleph. The last thing we saw was about this group of people who descend of Eli HaKohen, where unfortunately there was a curse put on the house of Eli HaKohen, that they would all die young. So it mentions there about how Rabbah and Abaye were from the house of Eli, reminding yourself that Rabbah was the uncle of Abaye. In some Girsot of the Gemara, it says Rava. But as is pointed out by Tosfot and by Rashi, it's not really possible since Rava was not a Kohen. If you look at Rashi, second to last of the wide lines of Rashi, Abai v'Rava, Eli Atu, Kach Shamati. So I heard. If you look there in Rashi, you see their third line of Rashi on page 18a. There's an aleph there. That's what I heard. But V'shchita Chulin Perak Hazarua, Hazarua rather. Sorry, Ashkechan de Rava Lav Kohenhu, V'Shama Imo Mi Beit Eli Haita. Good answer. Rava's mother must have been from the house of Eli, and therefore he had the gene, even though he himself was not a Kohen. V'yesh Gorsin Rabbah with a hey. V'abayim Farshila Rabbah Bar Nachmeni, that it was him. Look at Tosfot. Tosfot Dibra Matchil Rabbah v'Abaye Mida Beit Eli Ka'atu Rava Chaveru Shel Abaye Lo Hava Kohen Kinemucha Perak Hazroa V'Hacha Rabbah Chaveru Shel Chizda. And it must be that it's really Rabbah. It's really Tosfot who points this out. Doesn't even accept the possibility that it's Rava and it's through his mother, right? We learn this also from the last parak in Moed Katan to Amar Rava, because it was Rava himself who was the one who said, Chaye bane umizone, how long a person lives, what will be with their children, and what their food allotment will be, i.e. their parnasa, lo bischuta talia milta, el mazalia talia milta. That doesn't relate to their merit. That relates to their mazel, whatever their mazel is. We understand mazel now on a bit of a deeper level than we did in the past, knowing that has to do with constellations and the like. I have more to say on the subject, but I want to really stick to Tosfot tonight. For those who are like, what do you mean, the mazel? What does that mean? A lot to say, but I'll skip it for now. We'll come back to it when we learn about mazel more in depth. Again, we're going to come back to it once more in a few blot from now. Deha Rav Rav Chizda Tarvayu Tzadikin Gemurim Havu. Mar Matzle v'atim mitra, umar Matzle v'atim mitra. Rabba and Rav Chizda were great tzaddikim. They both davened and it caused rain to come. And yet, Rabba chaya arbayin shanin. He only lived to be 40, Rabba, and Rav Chizda chaya tishin. There's a little Yud Gimel there. It says tishin ushnayim. Yeah, v'tartin shnin. He lived to be 92. Same two big tzaddikim. One only lived to 40 to 92. So answer one is because of the mazel. That's a Rabbah. That was his mazel. He only lived to be 40. Again, more to say in it, but here we'll go. V'im tomar minale de mishum mazalahava de mishum de Rabbah atam de Beit Eli. How do you know that it's because his mazel was that way? Why don't you just say he was actually from the house of Eli? He was a Kohen after all. So because if not for the mazel, then whatever that curse was from the house of Eli that he descended of, after all, he had a lot of merit for learning Torah. So it should have protected him. But it couldn't protect him when it came to the mazel. That was his mazel to live for as long as he did. That's how Hashem set it up. V'im tomar, dehacha, mashma, de Rabba, lo haya lo zchut shel gmil chasadim. And if you want to say that maybe Rabbah did not have the merit of as much loving kindness, so, you point out that Abaye, who was the adopted son of Rabbah, said to him, you have master, you have so much Torah, and you have a lot of Gemil Chasadim. So maybe Abaye outlived him. He lived to be like 60. That's what the Gemara here says, because maybe he did more chesed than Rabbah did. Yeah? Okay. So it goes. Now, that's as far as the as Tosfot, Rashi Tosfot, and what we had just seen. If you follow now back in the Gemara, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down in the Gemara, where it describes the beginning of the line is Rabbi Yochanan al Shmo. It's that there was a family that had this problem that they said we're from the house of Mishpachat Eli. He said to them, but Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said to them, you must be from the house of Eli, because everyone dies when they're 18, right? So today you would say it's a genetic issue. which is, by the way, another way of saying the mazel, but I won't go down that right now, right? If I say mazel, it's the mazel. Say jeans, well, of course, that's understandable. But that, again, much more to say on the issue. I've done a lot of thinking about it. Doesn't mean I'm right, but at least I have a mahalach in it. But all to say, they went, they learned Torah, they did Gemilut Chasadim. What happened? They lived a long life, longer life. So they would call themselves the family of Rabbi Yochanan. They weren't really related to him, but they owed them their lives. So they called themselves that. Now we come to the next piece, 4 lines down in the wider lines of the Gemara. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Enya Mishmei Derav Minayin Legzardin Shel Tzibur She'eno Nachtam. How do you know that the decree that is promulgated against a community is never actually sealed? The Gemara recalls, "Eno nechtam." It's not sealed. Of course, it's sealed. V'haktiv nechtam avonech lifanai. Nechtam here not shown with a chet, but with a chaf, meaning like a ketem. I mentioned it last time. It's a stain, right? Meaning it's not going to go away. El afagav shenechtam nikra. No, even though it was sealed, it could still be torn up. Shenamar. Kashem Elokeinu b'chol kor'enu elav, right? Ki mi goy gadol asher lo Elokim krovim elav. Kashem Elokeinu b'chol kor'enu elav. I wondered actually if there wasn't a play on words. B'chol kor'enu elav is not just whenever we call out to him, but b'chol, when all of us call out to him. That's drush. That's not the pshat. But in other words, b'chol kor'enu, it's in the plural. Yeah, but maybe it's some idea that we have to do it all together. The Gemara notes v'haktiv, but doesn't it already say specifically that Dirshu Hashem b'hi matz'o, seek God when He is found, meaning there's a limited time. It's not any time. Hatam b'yachid, hacha b'tzibur. Now that's really when for an individual that there's a particular time, but for the tzibur it could be any time. B'chol korin, whenever we call out to Hashem, He'll answer if we call as a community. B'yachid emat. So when can the individual take advantage to say "Bihi matz'o," God is found and close to Him? Amar Rabba Baravua Elu Asar Yom Shebin Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim. Yeah, 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Those are the 10 days when Hashem is close. When He is found. When I think it's really when. Karov is near. That's geographic. Maybe Bimatzos is where he is found. But where he is found apparently he is found between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur because he's not physical. It's not a place. It's a time. Yeah. So I'm saying that has to do with proximity. Yeah. Tokarov. Yeah. Okay. Again, it's imagery, right? It's not literal. Says when? Oh, that's what I originally thought. But actually, if you look at the second of the pasuk, Karov, when he is near means nearby, near and far, distance. I don't know. Okay, it's one or the other. It's ambiguous. That's the point because we end up translating having to do with time.
Why? It's time and space.
Yeah, they're related. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, as you know, time and space are very much related. Malchutcha kol olamim u'mshaltecha b'chol dor vador, space and time. And actually, of course, they're related. Ein Sham, a Jew named Einstein, space-time. Now back to regular scheduled programming. Vayiki asara yamim vayagef Hashem et Naval. Asara yamim. What is that story with Naval? Right? So he got a 10-day reprieve after which Naval, a Carmeli, was killed. This has to do with a whole story involving David HaMelech when he was still living as a fugitive, being hunted mercilessly unfortunately, by Shaul HaMelech, by his father-in-law. And long story short, his people are essentially shamed and not taken care of by Naval. Naval is a drunkard, a whole story, and Hashem punishes him, but he gives him a 10-day reprieve. So, Ma'avi Tayu, Amarav Yehuda Amarav, Kineged Eser Legimot Shenatan Naval Avdei David. At the beginning, Naval gave 10 meals, 10 feasts to these avadim of David. Each one got a feast. It's like 10, so he got 10 days. If you look at Rashi, you have Rashi in the narrow lines, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down. It says V'yachid emat matzilo dichtiv bihi matz'o keneged asara legimot. Rashi, first word on the line in Rashi is asara. Again, it's probably about five lines down. Narrow lines. Asara advadim shalach lo David ken mefarish b'kra. You have in Shmuel Aleph. V'natan lem suda achat lefichach natlu lo asara yamim. See how powerful it is when you give someone a meal. could save your life by a few days. That's what's here. Yep. Amar Rav Nachman, back in the Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman. Amar Rabba Bar Avua. Elo Sayam Shmino Shneim Kippurim. Some of these are related. These 10 days that were the reprieve of Naval referred to the 10 days of certain made tshuva. And Rashi says, Shehimtin lo Kadosh Baruch Yeshuv lo shav. He was hoping that really Naval would do tshuva. He didn't do tshuva. He died after 10 days. But it's related to the Aseret Yemei Tshuva. Ayin Sham in the Sefer Al HaTshuva by Rav Soloveitchik, really Rabbi Pinchas Peli, writing up the Tshuva drashas of Rav Soloveitchik, and there's a whole section there on Naval. And when he wakes up from the wine and he realizes he's done the wrong thing, etc. And does he do tshuva? Does he not? And Avigail speaking to him. Okay, Ayin Sham. That's more drush, but there's some halachas there in Hilchot Tshuva. Now on to the next part of the Gemara. Rosh Hashanah Kol Ba'ay Olam Ovrin Lefanav. Kivnei Maron. But Rosh Hashanah, all of humanity, everybody passed before God like Bnei Maron. And the Gemara asks very famously, "My Kivnei Maron, Hachi Targimu, Kivnei Amirna or Amirana." I usually translate Amirana, but means like sheep. The sheep have to pass through the gate in order to have the tithe taken. Every 10th one gets a red daub on it, and that's the idea. Right? If you look at Rashi, Rosh Hashanah Kol Ba'ay Olam V'chulei Kivnei Amarana Kichsavim Shemonin Oten LaAsran V'yotzin Zeh Achar Zeh B'Fetach Katan She'ein Yicholin Latzev Ke'echad. They go one by one. They can't go out all at once. Sheep dafka who function with that's where the notion of the herd mentality is very much on display. It's true for any of that kind of herded livestock, but particularly of sheep. Right? So Kivnei Marana means they're going to be one by one. That's called by Olam of Lefanav, means one by one. Kivnei Maron, as they go one by one. So all of humanity goes one by one. Reish Lakish Amar Kemalat Beit Maron. It's going up to Maron. They want to go up. There's a particular way to get there. It's a very narrow pathway, and therefore people have to go single file. If you look at Rashi here also, Haderach Katzar ve'Ein Yicholin Leilech Zel Tzadzeh She'emek Amok Mishnei Tzidei Haderach. Sounds precarious. You're walking on some kind of a path that has an abyss on either side. It's a narrow path. You have to go single file in order to get up to that town. So it's Kivnei Maron, like the people in Maron, when they want to go up to that place. Finally, to the end of this line. Not everyone has the word Amar there, but regardless, Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Kechelot Shel Beit David. It's like the legions of the house of David. Rashi, Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Kechelot Shel Beit David. V'Hadar Garsinan Amar Rav Barachanav Beseder Kechelot Shel Beit David. Uchivnei Maron Kivnei Chayalot Shel Melech Maron Lashon Marut ve'Adnut, authority, dominion. V'kach hayom. It's really the wrong word. It's authority and authority, but it's like, I don't know, this authority and mastery or something. V'kach hayu monin otam yotzim zechar zeh b'tzeitam l'milchama. They would count them in this way, one after the other, as they were going out to war, right? And of course, this is this three-way machloket about how to understand the words Kivnei Maron is understood by various commentaries as various ways to understand the din, or different types of people at the din. So there are the people who are essentially imbeciles. They walk like sheep. They just follow the herd. They're not independent. They have no sense of direction, like a beast. They're bleating, and they're going through the hole, but they know, well, what can you do? Some people will live, some people will die. I can't do much about it. Just have to walk through. Kivnei Maron. So Hashem counts the people Kivnei Maron. The second group, that's the people that are going up. They're going up, they're ascending, but they recognize there's danger on either side. Danger on either side. But they're going up as best they can. They're following the person in front of them. They're human. They have a sense of direction. And that's how Kadosh Baruch Hu, Kol Ba'al of Kivnei Maron, that's the people they know they could fall off on either side, right? The third group is the group of Chayalot Bnei David, Beit David. They understand that they may be, in fact, soldiers in Hashem's army. It's a feel a sense of purpose and a sense of togetherness with other people who are also standing judgment, right? There are a lot of pieces on this in terms of the world of Jerush, but there are halachic components to this also. You have right here Rishayim, Beinonim, and Tzaddikim. Yeah. Others understand the latter two as flipped, that the people going up Bnei Maron, they stand alone. They're tzaddikim. So they just walk, they follow people ahead of them, there are people following them, and they don't have to worry, they're going up. But the Chilat Beit David are going out to the battlefields of life. They don't know what's going to happen. They're not resting easy on their righteousness. But they were chosen in the first place to be there because of a certain righteousness, but they're Beinoni because they don't know what's going to happen. So they're getting counted before they go out to war. Again, different ways to darshan it. But all to say three different types of imagery about how to understand that everyone passes before Hashem, Kivnei Maron. Amarab, more to say, but I'll leave it for now. Rabba Bar Bar Chana, Rabbi Yochanan, V'kulan Niskaran Biskira Achad. They are all surveyed in one glance, right? And somehow. Now, if you're talking about, we're talking about Hashem, so obvious, yeah? But the point here is at the very same time that every individual is being judged on an individual level, at the same time, everyone is judged on a collective level, meaning they're all surveyed at the same time, right? Or to say it in another way of saying it is, or another way you could say it's not the same, it's not a restatement. Another way is Kadosh Baruch Hu judges all individuals individually, but at the same moment. Right? There's two ways to look at it, right? And this the latter part of the Mishnah, which if you look at the Mishnah, is back on Ted Zion, you'll see at the end it quotes a pasuk. It's on Ted Zion Amud Aleph. No, I meant to say Ted Zion Amud Bet. Did I say Amud Aleph? I didn't mean to say Ted Zion Amud Aleph. Did I lie? I didn't lie. I don't lie. Oh, it wasn't Ted Zion Amud Aleph. There it is. Shenemar, which sounds like it's explaining what that means, right? Well, sounds like it's explaining they're passing before Hashem, Kivnei Maron, as it says, So what does this actually mean? So Rabbi Chanan's name, Rabbi Yochanan. Everyone is viewed, scanned in one scan, if you will. Amar Rav Nachman, back in the Gemara Yud Chet Amud Aleph. Amar Rav Nachman, you see it there? Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Af Ana Nami Tanena. We also explained Hayotzer Yachad Libam Hamevin Kol Maasehem. So what do those words mean? Hayotzer Yachad Libam Hamevin Kol Maasehem. He forms their hearts together. He understands all of their actions. Maika Amar, what does that mean? Ile Mahachik Amar de Branhu. If it means God created all of their hearts and He united all of their hearts together, right, as one, we see that it's not that way in the world. People are not united in their hearts. They're different ideas, different thoughts. This is how you should read the pasuk. So it's Hayotzer means the creator, in the sense of the one who fashions, sees their hearts all at the same time, and he understands all of their actions. HaKadosh Baruch Hu as omniscient, all-knowing, and to know what's in people's hearts as such. If you look at Rashi here, he gives you a little more here. Rashi v'kulan iskarin v'chulei av bisha over in zeh. So even though we pass one after the other, sort of an element of single file in some way, still we're all scanned at the same time. Af an nami tanena Rashi the kulan iskarin b'skira achad midenasiv tana didan Talmud lemilte mahaykra hayotz yachad liba. So the idea that he says, I also learned this idea that everyone's scanned at once with one glance, so to speak, from the fact that our Tana in the what we have in our Mishnah, it quotes this pasuk hayotz yachad liba, right? That he attached it to Kulan Iskar Miskir Aret Midenasiv Tana Didan Talmud Lemilte Behaikra Hayotz Yachad Liban. That he attached it or relied it upon our Tana that this limud to this pasuk, this thing which is really a pasuk Milte Behaikra from the pasuk Hayotz Yachad Liban, right? I'm now blanking, but it's gonna coming up on it next. It's gonna quote the pasuk before part of it, so that's it. We see that's not true, so it must be something else. So the Gemara said, Rashi says, "Hachika amayotz roe yachad libam v'akrad le'el minei kamahadar hishgiach al kol yoshvei haaretz hayotzer otam hishgiach yachad et libam. Right, the pasuk before. So in the parak of Tehillim, Ranud Tzadikim B'Hashem. Anyone want to chime in? Where's Benny? In Florida. No. Rashi just quoted the pasuk partially just now. If you look into Tehillim, chapter 33, we say it every single Shabbos, but I can never. It's in Rana Tzadikim. What does it say? It says, no, Mishamayim bit Hashem, ra'ayat kol b'nei hadam, mimchon shifto hishgiach, el kol yoshvei ha'aretz. So the two psukim before, from Shemayim Hashem looks down and he sees, or not looks down, from heaven Hashem looks and he sees all of humanity. Mimchon shifto hishgiach, he is mashgiach, means he supervises or is providential from the place where he dwells. El koshvei haaretz, to those who are dwelling in the world, in the physical world. Hayotzer yachad libam hamevin al kol ma'aseihem. Right, the one who fashions sees their hearts together and he understands all of their actions. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Okay, we're good. Good. Back to the shir. Okay, so all of that brought us to the next Mishnah, where we return to some elements of halacha. I hear the cheer from some people and the boo from others. Okay, so depends what your fancy is, but you got everything. You're in the Gemara. Mishnah 3 lines up from the bottom, Yud Chet Amud Aleph. So just by way of introduction, we already know the Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah was the system that was at play for certain periods of Jewish history, spanning from Yetziat Mitzrayim until sometime it's unclear, maybe around the 3rd century of the Common Era, something like that. After that, we're using a calendar. Machloket, who made up the calendar, where it came from, who enacted it. That's why I brought these fine Rishonim. I don't know if we'll get there tonight. And a discussion about the way in which they would have to get the word to people who lived outside of the immediate catchment area in Yerushalayim. We will learn further along. We all probably know the Mishnayot. They used to light fires on mountaintops and make a relay all the way out to Bavel. It didn't last because people, Davka, tried to mess it up. So why would anyone want to mess it up? Why would the non-Jews want to mess up what the Jews are doing, to have a calendar and holidays and Judaism? And I think the answer, it's a rhetorical question. So they had to send out emissaries. So sending out emissaries back in the day meant you needed people on horseback to go. So they didn't go every single month because it meant they would be away from family for Yom Tov potentially and this and that. So it was 6 times of the year that they went out to deliver the news about retroactively when the moon had been sighted. The moon was either going to be sighted, the new moon was either going to be seen on day 30, in which case that would be Rosh Chodesh, and that would mean that it was a Chodesh Chaser that just had passed, or they saw it on day 31, automatically that would make it the Rosh Chodesh. Day 31 was day 1 of the new month, and in which case the previous month was a Chodesh Malay. Today we don't do that. We have a calendar, essentially, with the exception of something that happens around Hanukkah time, depending, but mostly it alternates. 1 day, 2 day, 1 day, 2 day, 1 day, 2 day, in terms of the number of days of Rosh Chodesh. One of the exceptions, of course, is Rosh Hashanah. There's no 30th day of Elul. 30th day of Elul always is Rosh Hashanah. We do 2 days. Day 30 of Elul becomes 1 Tishrei, and day 2 of Tishrei is day 2 of Tishrei. So that's set in our fixed calendar. And then you have an alternating system between 1 day, 2 days, 1 day, 2 days, which is why, let's say when Nisan comes, we're going to have 1 day, here will be 2, Sivan is 1, and v'chule, and go back and forth between those. We'll get into that later on. We didn't get to that yet, but just to kind of set things up. Now, al shisha chodashim hashluchin yotzin, 6 times of the year, 6 months, did the emissaries have to go to announce that there was a new month. Al Nisan mipnei Pesach, al Av mipnei Tanit, al Elul mipnei Rosh Hashanah, al Tishri mipnei Takanat HaMoadot, al Kislev mipnei Chanukah, al Adar mipnei HaPurim. U'shahaya b'Mikdash Kayam, yotzin af al Iyar mipnei Pesach Katan. So there was a 7th one when they would go when the Beit Mikdash was still standing, because the Pesach Katan we call Pesach Sheni, same thing. Look at Rashi with me, Matnitin, Al Shisho Chodashim. Al Shisho Chodashim Shluchim Yotzin, Shekidshu Beitin HaChodesh Al Pi Edim, Ksharo at HaChodesh, Umodim HaShluchin Legola Yom Shekidshu, Im Biyom Shloshim V'Chodesh, V'Shavar Chaser, O Biyom Lamed Shloshim V'Chat, Lamed Aleph V'Chodesh Shavar Malay. Exactly what I just said. So I basically had read Rashi before this year, so that's what I recited. Mipna Pesach, V'Ochan HaShluchin Ada Pesach, Chutz Min HaShabbatot. They didn't go travel on Shabbos, according to this, but they did go until Pesach. So as far out as they could get, they could get. What about places where they couldn't get? They automatically kept 2 days because they didn't know. It's a good deal. But if the shluchim could get there, then they could know which day was going to be Pesach.
So if the shluchim were away, and they missed being able to bring their carbon Pesach.
Yeah, guess. Yeah, I suppose.
But then they also had shluchim.
They had Pesach Sheni for that because they were doing Dvar Mitzvah, yeah, presumably.
Let's say 10 different shluchim. When they got married, the first one.
I don't know. Right. They aren't the same shluchim. They're sending different people, different times. Yeah. So, but just to consider, they had to get to a certain area. One of the issues that will come up, of course, you already realize, Rambam talks about it. We'll get to it. We'll see it inside. I mean, the geographic distance from Yerushalayim on horseback to, Bavel is pretty far. But to get from Yerushalayim to Mitzrayim, the Rambam writes, about an 8-day journey. It's very doable. So it would turn out that people in Egypt would regularly keep only 1 day, and the people in Bavel would never keep 1 day. And what about the people, and he starts going through certain places in Syria, maybe certain places even in Eretz Yisrael, maybe it was harder to get to because the terrain and topography, roads being what they were, time of year, things like that. So it could end up that people in Eretz Yisrael were keeping 2 days and people in Chutz La'aretz nearby Israel were keeping 1 day. This was, right, because the Shluchim could get there. But this was all until Kiddush Al Pi Re'iyah stopped. Once you get to the calendar, there's like a standardization. The standardization sounds like if you're in Israel, it's 1 day. If you're out of Israel, it's 2 days. Even though Mitzrayim, technically all those years, was getting the people were getting to those communities in time. Yeah.
Because they didn't send shluchim before Shavuos, because we had the Sfira Omer on the.
Tosfot, right?
Oh, I didn't read Tosfot.
It's all right.
All right, anyway. Would that indicate that possibly that would have been a 1 day holiday?
All the time?
All the time, because they would have had surgery there. Because they didn't send shluchim, there shouldn't have been doubt.
Right. So look at Tosfot. We'll skip there right now. Tosfot al Nisan Mipnei Pesach. Tosfot Aval al Sivan Mipnei Atzeret Lo Tzarich. Right? They didn't have to go for Sivan. Tiba Omer Hadavar Talui. It all depended on the Omer. Kidam Rina Le'el. The Tana Rav Shmaya Atzeret Pa'amim Chamisha Pa'amim Shisha Pa'amim Shiva. Now, what does that mean? It depended on how many days of the month Nisan was and how many days of the month Iyar was. But you're right, the count would always be the count tethered to whenever Pesach was. So you would just be counting up from there. And that's when you do Shavuot. But that could fall on different days of the month of Sivan, depending on Kiddush Al Pi Re'iyah, how long or short the previous months were. So if Nisan ended up being Chaser, after 29 days of Nisan, it was Rosh Chodesh, Iyar was day 30 of Nisan was really 1 of Iyar, then you pass through Iyar, and then you find yourself 29 days in Iyar, and on day 30 they saw the moon, and it's taken care of. So now what happens? So now you're crunched by 2 days. It's going to come out on the 5th. If both Nisan and Iyar were Male, 30 days, then when you're going to get to Sivan, right, depending what that Re'iyah is going to be also, it could be on the 7th. And if it's, what is it? Chaser, Male, Chaser, something like that. Chaser, no. Chaser, Male, Chaser. I think I said it correctly. Yeah, it's going to end up being, if it alternates, it's going to be on the 6th of Sivan. It'll be in the middle day because you have a split screen, right? So whatever day of Sivan it's going to be, though, you're right. Whenever you start a Pesach, That's when you're going to do Shavuot because it goes by the count. You're not going to finish Sfirat HaOmer. Oh, we have 2 more days. It's not right there on the calendar. Nowadays, it's moot. Always going to be 6 Sivan because we always start counting on the 16th day of Nisan, and we all have the same day because we have the calendar. So back to Rashi. We go 8 days, but not on Shabbos. Another question, please.
If, because of Sphira, they knew when Rosh Chodesh was.
No, they knew when Shavuot was. They didn't know when Rosh Chodesh was. That's the point. Because that was on the system of Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah. But once you start celebrating Pesach, and you had the 15th of Nisan, you celebrated it, then on the 16th of Nisan, you're going to start counting the Omer.
Right.
So that's going to be 49 days of counting, and day 50 is going to be Shavuot, regardless of what day it says on the calendar. And depending on when the witnesses would see the new moon, again, we're all talking about between a day here and there, it could be sliding around a little bit in Sivan, 5th, 6th, or 7th Sivan, but it all depended on when the Sira was going to finish.
If they know when, they must know when Shavuot is, why don't they just keep counting and have effectively a calendar? They don't have to rely on Re'iyah.
Great. So just to remind you, we're kind of Parshat HaChodesh, Davka, the mitzvah, is to do Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah. Hashem ideally did not want us to use the calendar. He wanted us to be able to have this system where we're in touch, if you will, with the lunar cycle, and that we are making some declaration in a constituted Beit Din with people who are musmachim from Eretz Yisrael. This is the new month. The question is that because the Jewish people didn't actually have a calendar, and then they had to make one because they were stuck, or they always had the calendar, but there was this ceremonial requirement that they also do this other way of
the other side of that question is, so why do we have calendars? Why do we rely on calendars?
Right. So the system of Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah fell apart owing to the exile somewhere around circa the early 3rd century, I believe, of the Common Era. Until then, even after the destruction of the Second Beit HaMikdash, there was still a Sanhedrin who was moving around, finally got exiled completely from Tiberia. And already in the days of Hillel Hasheni, we don't have any more possibility of doing Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah. Not because they don't see the moon and know what to do, because we don't have a constituted Sanhedrin that can convene in Eretz Yisrael. And when that's missing, it falls apart. There is an asterisk on what I'm saying, which is that people who are musmachim from Eretz Yisrael could technically go to Chutz La'aretz. There's a story that Rabbi Akiva at one point somehow was Mekadesh HaChodesh in Chutz La'aretz based on the fact that he was a musmach of Eretz Yisrael, whatever. But the general rule is, once you're out of Israel, Kiddush HaChodesh starts to fall to pieces from a Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah standpoint. And the question is, which the Rishonim will debate, we won't get to it tonight already, is, do they always have the calendar and they just weren't allowed to use it, or they had to come up with the calendar because the Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah was falling apart? So we'll have to get into that. Rashi, Va'al Av Mipnei Atanit, Shabbos they didn't travel, but they would go the rest of the 8 days of Av before the Tanit, which means it was a smaller radius that they could reach, right? They have fewer days to travel. If you had 14 days to travel for Pesach, that's much farther. It's 6 days more of travel. But if you can only go 8 days travel, not including Shabbos, that's okay. It'll be different. Elul mipnei Rosh Hashanah, Modim matai hitchil Elul. They would announce when Elul was starting. V'osin Rosh Hashanah b'yom shloshim le'Elul b'golah. And Chutz La'aretz would always make it on the 30th day in the diaspora. The Rov Shanim, because most of the time in Elul Ma'ubar. Elul was not Ma'ubar, meaning it was not a 30-day month. It was generally a 29-day month. Safek would be Adam. Shema Ya'avruhu Beitin. Maybe it was a suffix, even though it was a suffix in their hands. Maybe the Beit Din would decide to defer by a day. Yef Shalahen Ladat. They had no way to know. Va'al Korchan Holchin Acharov Shanim. So since they had no choice, they would go according to the way it was most years, i.e., it would be on 29 Elul. The next day was Rosh Hashanah, no matter what. Vim lo yadu matay. You should understand, because they couldn't do the Kiddush HaChodesh and dispatch the shluchim. It's the same day. The holidays on Rosh Chodesh. Pesach and Sukkot is the 15th of the month. You have some time from Kiddush HaChodesh till the holiday. Shavuot, the problem is obviated because you're connecting through the Sphira. Rashi ends here, V'im lo yadu matai hitchil elul, lo yadu shloshim shelo, yom shloshim shelo. They went to the 30th day. Had they not already set it up in advance that they knew when Elul was? Val tishmi pnei takanata moadot. This is a bit quizzical. Lachash kichu beitin latishrei, hashluchin yotzin lama macharat. V'holchin ad makom sheyicholin hagia ad achag. Umodim im ibru beitin at Elul. Isn't that strange? I just finished telling you that, to Larry's point from before, if you already had them go out on Elul and they arrive and they tell you, oh, Rosh Chodesh was 10 days, 10 days ago. Okay, so that means today's 11, 12, 13, 14. When you get to day 29, the next day is going to be Rosh Hashanah. So then the Mishnah goes on to say, oh, in Chodesh Tishrei, they would dispatch more emissaries to go, so they would get there sometime before Sukkot. Why? You already knew when Rosh Hashanah was. So Rosh Hashanah 2 days, 30, Elul is day 1, day 2, count up to 10, that's Yom Kippur, and you get to Sukkot, right? So why do you have to go? There was still a doubt in people's minds. What if this was the year that things are messed up and they already made they added an extra day to Rosh Hashanah? This is back in the days of Kiddush HaChodesh. Kiddush Al Pi Re'iyah, I should say. And therefore, we're sunk. Maybe we're going to do the Yom Kippur the wrong day. Maybe we'll do Sukkot the wrong day. So maybe we did Rosh Hashanah the wrong day. We went by the law of averages, usually not that way. But Yom Kippur is so important. Sukkot, a whole 8-day festival. You can't live like this. So to reassure them, they would send out the shluchim a second time. We'll come to it in the Gemara. Of course, there's more to say on this matter. Pesach Katan, Pesach Sheni, L'tamei, Shia B'derech, V'shehaya B'derech L'choka B'rishon. Right. So when there was a Beit HaMikdash, you could do Pesach Sheni. Why did they just say we're counting Sphira? Pesach Sheni is always on the 14th day of ER. Of the 14th day of the ER. Yeah, we know what day it is. Yeah, but what's 14th of ER? Depends how many days of Rosh Chodesh there were.
Right. Day after my Yom.
That's another way to remember it.
That's how they did it.
But you don't know, your birthday is always on the 13th of ER.
Yeah.
Except 13th ER might be on this day or that day, depending on how many days in the end were in Nisan when the Eidim came. In Nisan, the Shluchim were then dispatched for ER. Okay. Ad Kan for tonight. And we will resume, God willing, next week in health and happiness. We'll have to meet a little bit later next week. I guess 7:30. And next week, I don't have any other programs to go to, so go 7:30 to 8:15. That's it. Ad Kan.